The tour promoter called James Brown at 3 in the morning and said, "We found someone cheaper. You're fired." Brown hung up, smiled, and made one phone call. What happened in the next 24 hours destroyed that promoter's career and taught the music industry a lesson about the difference between cost and value. It was 1974, and James Brown was in the middle of a 20-city summer tour. 12 shows down, 12 shows to go. The tour was doing well. Sold-out venues, ecstatic crowds, everything running smoothly. Brown was getting paid $100,000 for the full tour, with half paid up front and the remaining $50,000 due at completion. The promoter was a businessman named Marcus Webb. He'd been in the concert promotion business for 5 years, had a decent reputation, and specialized in booking soul and R&B acts across the South and Midwest. Webb was smart, or so he thought. He knew how to negotiate, how to market, how to maximize profit margins. What he didn't understand was that some artists aren't replaceable, that some names carry weight beyond just the performance, that James Brown wasn't just a singer, he was an institution. Webb had been doing the math. He was paying Brown $100,000 for 20 shows, $5,000 per show, but he was grossing about $15,000 per show after expenses. That meant he was making $10,000 per show, $200,000 total for the tour. Then Webb got a call from a booking agent representing a James Brown tribute act. Not an impersonator. A legitimate funk band that did Brown's songs, had a charismatic frontman, put on a good show, and they'd do the remaining 12 shows for $60,000 total. $30,000 instead of $50,000. $20,000 saved. Webb's accountant brain started working. The venues were already booked. The tickets were already sold. People bought tickets to see James Brown's music. Not necessarily James Brown himself, right? And if the replacement act was good enough, maybe people wouldn't even care. Maybe some wouldn't even notice. He convinced himself this was a smart business decision. Cut costs, maintain revenue, increase profit margin, simple economics. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, after Brown had just performed in St. Louis, Webb made the call. Brown answered. "Groggy, this better be important." "James, it's Marcus Webb. We need to talk about the rest of the tour." "What about it?" "I'm making a change. I've found another act that can finish the tour. You're done after St. Louis." There was a long silence. Then Brown's voice, suddenly very awake. "You're firing me. In the middle of my own tour?" "It's not firing. It's a business decision. I'm still paying you for the shows you've done. But going forward, I'm using a different act." "Who?" "A funk ensemble. They do your material. Very professional. The audiences will love them. You think you can replace James Brown with a cover band? I think I can provide quality entertainment at a better price point. That's business, James. Nothing personal." Brown was quiet for a moment. Webb heard what sounded like a low chuckle. "You think this is funny?" Webb asked. "I think you just made the biggest mistake of your career. And I think you're going to realize that in about 24 hours. Are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening anything. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. You want to replace me? Go ahead. Try it. I'll give you 24 hours before you're begging me to come back." "I won't be begging anyone. I've got a contract with the replacement act. It's done. Then good luck, Marcus. You're going to need it." Brown hung up. Webb felt a brief moment of unease, then dismissed it. Brown was posturing, trying to scare him into backing down. But Webb had made his decision. The numbers made sense. This was going to work. What Webb didn't know was that James Brown had spent 20 years building relationships with radio stations, with venue owners, with the musicians' union, with promoters who actually understood the business. And Brown was about to cash in every single one of those relationships. Brown made his first call at 3:15 a.m. to Jerry Mason, who owned the biggest soul music radio station in Chicago. Woke him up. "Jerry, it's James. I need a favor." "James, it's 3 in the morning. Marcus Webb is trying to replace me on my own tour, using some cover band. I need you to make sure every radio station you're connected with knows what he's doing." "What do you want me to say?" "Tell them Marcus Webb is running a scam, selling tickets to a James Brown concert and delivering a tribute act. Tell them he's defrauding customers. Tell them any venue that goes along with this is going to have credibility problems. You want me to blackball him. I want you to tell the truth, that he's selling something he can't deliver. That's fraud." By 6 a.m., 20 radio stations across the Midwest and South had mentioned on their morning shows that Marcus Webb was running a bait-and-switch operation. They didn't explicitly tell people not to buy tickets. They just reported the facts. Webb had booked James Brown, then replaced him with a cover band, without notifying ticket holders. Brown's second call was to the musicians' union. The replacement band Webb had hired, they were union members, and there were rules about replacing contracted performers mid-tour. By 9 a.m., the union had contacted the replacement band and informed them that if they performed under these circumstances, they'd be in violation of union bylaws regarding contract interference. The band, not wanting to risk their union membership, backed out. Webb got the call at 9:30. The replacement act was gone. He was furious, but he scrambled. He found another band, non-union, willing to do it for the same money. Crisis averted, or so he thought. Brown's third call was to venue owners. He'd performed at most of these venues before. He had relationships. He explained the situation. Webb was advertising James Brown concerts, but planning to deliver something else. "That's fraud," one venue owner said. "If ticket holders sue, they're going to sue the venue too. We could lose our license." By noon, 3 venues had called Webb and threatened to cancel unless he either brought James Brown or offered full refunds to all ticket holders. Webb was starting to panic. This was escalating faster than he'd anticipated, but he still thought he could handle it. He'd offer partial refunds, 20% off next purchase, or some other concession. He'd weather the storm. Brown's fourth call was to his lawyer. Within 2 hours, Brown's legal team had sent a letter to every venue on the remaining tour, informing them that James Brown had a contractual right to perform these shows, that Webb was in breach of contract, and that anyone who participated in Webb's scheme would be named as a defendant in the inevitable lawsuit. By 3 p.m., 2 more venues had canceled outright. They weren't risking legal exposure for a Marcus Webb concert. Webb was now down to 7 venues from 12. Half his remaining tour was gone, but he pushed forward. He still had 7 shows. He could still make money. Brown's fifth call was to ticket holders. Well, not directly, but he had his team contact radio stations in each tour city and offer a statement. James Brown was not performing the advertised shows due to promoter misconduct, and anyone who wanted a refund should demand it immediately. By 5 p.m., venue box offices were being flooded with refund requests. Not everyone wanted refunds. Some people were willing to see the replacement act, but enough people wanted their money back that venues were facing serious cash flow problems. Webb's phone was ringing constantly. Venue owners demanding guarantees, lawyers asking questions, his bank calling about the sudden flood of refund chargebacks, his wife asking what the hell was happening. At 6 p.m., Webb's accountant called with bad news. The refunds, the venue cancellations, the legal exposure. Webb was looking at losing not just his profit, but potentially his entire investment in the tour. He might end up owing money. At 7 p.m., a reporter from a music trade publication called asking for comment on the James Brown tour scandal. Webb realized this was about to become public in a way that would destroy his reputation industry-wide. At 8 p.m., the remaining venues called together on a conference line and delivered an ultimatum: bring James Brown, or we're all canceling, and you're liable for breach of contract with us too. At 9 p.m., exactly 18 hours after firing James Brown, Marcus Webb called him back. "James, we need to talk." Brown's voice was calm, almost amused. "I'm listening. I think there's been a misunderstanding about the tour." "No misunderstanding. You fired me. You said you found someone cheaper. I made a mistake. I acted too hastily. I'd like to discuss you returning to complete the tour. Would you now?" "Yes, I think we can work something out." "Here's what we're going to work out, Marcus. You're going to pay me $200,000 for the remaining 12 shows. That's double what we agreed on. That was the price when you had me booked. You tried to replace me. Now the price has gone up. Because now you're not just paying for my performance, you're paying for me to save your career. I can't afford $200,000. The refunds alone have already cost me. Then you're going to lose everything. Because without me, those remaining venues are canceling. And when they do, you're liable for breach of contract with them. And the ticket holders are going to sue you for fraud. And your reputation in this business is finished. So you can pay me $200,000 and maybe break even on the tour, or you can refuse and lose everything. Your choice." There was a long silence. "You did this," Webb said quietly. "The radio stations, the union, the venues. You orchestrated all of this in less than a day. I made some phone calls, told people what you were doing. They made their own decisions. This is blackmail. This is leverage. You thought you had leverage because you controlled the venues and the money. But I have leverage because I have relationships, because I've spent 20 years being professional, honoring my commitments, treating people with respect. And now those people are returning the favor. I don't have 200,000 cash. Then get it. You've got until tomorrow morning. The next show is in Indianapolis in 3 days. You either announce that James Brown is returning to the tour, or you announce that the entire tour is canceled. If it's canceled, I'm suing you for the remaining 50,000 you owe me, plus damages, plus legal fees. Your choice. Brown hung up. Webb sat in his hotel room, defeated. He made calls. He begged his bank for an emergency line of credit. He called in favors. He liquidated assets. By 6 a.m. the next morning, he had the money. He called Brown at 6:30. I have it. 200,000. You'll finish the tour. Under my conditions. I call the shots on everything. Venues, timing, security, everything. You're the promoter, but you don't make decisions anymore. You just handle logistics. Understood. Understood. And Marcus, after this tour is over, we never work together again. And I'm going to tell every artist I know about what you tried to do. You'll be able to book shows, but you won't be booking anyone who matters. Because everyone's going to know that you tried to save $20,000 and it cost you $150,000 instead. The remaining 12 shows went off perfectly. Brown performed brilliantly. Audiences had no idea what had happened behind the scenes. Webb fulfilled his obligations, paid the $200,000, and watched his profit margin evaporate. But he learned something valuable. You don't try to replace the irreplaceable. You don't mistake cost for value. And you definitely don't underestimate James Brown. The story spread through the industry. Other promoters heard about it. Artists heard about it. Everyone learned the same lesson. Relationships matter more than contracts. Leverage is about more than money. And 20 years of professionalism is worth more than any cost savings. Webb continued promoting shows, but his career never recovered its momentum. The artists who mattered, the ones who could fill venues and demand respect, they all knew the story, and they didn't trust him. Brown told this story years later, with a sense of satisfaction. People think power is about money, or size, or control. But real power is about relationships. It's about spending 20 years doing right by people, so that when someone tries to wrong you, those people have your back. Marcus Webb learned that lesson the expensive way. $200,000 expensive. If this story about leverage, relationships, and the difference between cost and value moved you, share it with someone who needs to understand that some people aren't replaceable at any price. Subscribe for more stories about legends who understood that true power comes from earning respect over decades. And remember, when someone tries to replace you with something cheaper, they're about to learn exactly what they're losing.